Yes, obviously the king didn't say that because they most likely have no idea what they're offering, Araka says, and the Lessethi, who are also in charge of organizing the tournament, probably didn't feel like telling them about it because they have their own hidden agenda and they wouldn't want the king to find out what's really at stake here. I haven't exactly been paying attention to the politics of Wraithia, but if I were to take an educated guess, I'd say that both the king and the Lessethi are hiding something from each other and they both think that they have the upper hand. They each most likely have their own secret purpose for organizing this tournament, and you losers are too busy dancing to their tunes to even consider that you might be getting duped. So the kings knew from the beginning that the majority of the contestants wouldn't even hope to use the Magium, but they let us join anyway, Hadrick shouts. That's even worse than making us hunt for pine cones that can't be detected by anyone other than Stillwaters and sages. Do these kings really have no respect at all for the lives of hundreds or maybe even thousands of mages that died in this tournament fighting over nothing? Maybe that is what the kings were aiming for from the beginning, Iluna says. Maybe their true objective was to lure the most powerful mages of the main continent away from their homelands to encourage them to kill each other, so that each continent aside from Wraithia would be simultaneously robbed of the strongest fighters. At this rate, I wouldn't be too surprised if the Wraithian kings were planning to invade the other continents soon after the end of this tournament. Or perhaps the Wraithian kings were getting worried that they might get invaded for whatever reason, I say, and decided to preemptively cull the numbers of their potential attackers. That could also explain why they specifically asked for the winner of this tournament to become the protector of Wraithia in case of an outside invasion. That is also possible, yes, Luna says. What about Lessethi organizers then, Terence says. What would they have to gain from all of this? It's possible that Lessethi are trying to take advantage of the chaos being caused by this tournament to seize control of some of the kingdoms of Wraithia, Kate says. And the possibility is that they could in fact want the tournament prize for themselves and they only help with the organization so that the king would lead them to the location where the Magium can be accessed. It's hard to guess what their true purpose is when we know so little about them. Your friend Diane was part of Meredith's elite guard, right? I asked Kate. We could try to meet her about this when we finally meet her again. She might know something about their plans. Right, what happened to Diane? The problem is I record these at like such a long duration of time. I probably started playing this like last year or something, probably when the first video went up. So I play this in like such a long gaps that I sometimes forget. I do remember meeting Diane and she electrocuted us. Did we meet her after that again at some point? I don't particularly remember. Moving on, I have to say, Darren tells me, I am surprised at how calm and collected you are being right now, Barry. Of all the people here, you are probably by far the one who wants to Magium the most. How are you so unaffected by the fact that the prize you've been fighting so hard to obtain may prove to be completely worthless to you? Oh, it's because I've already had this conversation before with Kate, I say. She saw that I was becoming hesitant about the Magium after what happened in the God of Times ritual, and she helped me gain back my motivation by suggesting an alternate way in which I could make use of the Magium to turn myself into a mage. Is that so? Darren says as he gives Kate an impressed look for a few seconds before turning his gaze back to you. And what was the suggestion that she gave you? The idea is for me to first of all unlock my magical stats from my device in order to be able to use my temporary magical powers to link myself to the Magium, I say. Then once I have access to all of the Magium's knowledge, I can take my time researching a way to modify my stat device so that it can extract energy directly from the magical plane instead of getting it from the mages around me, which would essentially turn me into a full-fledged mage. I know it's not a perfect plan, but after giving it some thought, I say I'm pretty confident in my odds of success. Well, Darren says, I'm not exactly sure what to say about the viability of your plan, but one thing is for certain, we could all use some of your optimism right now. Pardon me, I hear the voice of the King of the Underground as I turn around. I see that he is now standing right next to us. I hope I'm not interrupting anything too important, but there are some matters regarding the Overseer that I'd like to discuss with your group, and since you've already all gathered here, I figured that this would be a good time as I need to initiate a conversation. When I take a look around, I suddenly realize that we have already reached the waiting room for a while now, although we have been too absorbed in our conversation to notice. The The large hall is being lit only by torches, with no crystals left in its wall and the ceiling after the recent explosions. How do the torches work? Doesn't it get filled up with smoke in here or something? Or like run out of oxygen or something? How are they maintaining this whole thing? It's so weird. There must be like huge columns of like drafts coming in from like certain tunnels that like connect to the surface or something. Or like wind mages that like produce wind instead of moving it. I don't fucking know. The large hall is being lit only by torches with no crystals in its walls and ceilings after the recent explosion, and it is currently populated with quite a few rebels and refugees, even though most of them are people that I've seen only in passing. Of the people that I've actually interacted with, recognize Albert and Peter, both standing next to the king, and of course Desmond, who is still guarding the door to the quarantine area as usual. It's no bother, Darren tells the king of the underground. We were actually looking for you as well. Would it be alright if we asked you a short question before we begin making our plans regarding the overseer? Certainly, the king says. What did you want to ask? We're wondering if you've already decided on who's going to be the next king of Olander, Darren says. We haven't reached a definitive conclusion just yet, the king of the underground says, as he and Albert exchange a short glance, but the most likely scenario is that we will be electing a ruling council as soon as the situation of the Olander will become stable. Once the situation becomes stable, Darren repeats after the king. And what about before that? What is going to happen immediately after the overseer is no longer a threat? There will be a transitional period in which we will need a strong leader that can unify the masses and make sure that they are not led astray in this time of crisis, the king of the underground says. That the old king will already come as a shock to many of the people of the Olander, and we should avoid giving them even more cause for concern. We're also changing the ruling system right away, and the change needs to be done gradually, and the idea of an elected council will need to be introduced to them by a king they know and trust. And why are these two being so fucking aggressive? We should be a little bit, we should approach this slowly, considering we already know what he wants to do. And who is this king that they know and trust going to be? Kate asked in an acid tone. Is it you? If that is what the people want, then I would not shy away from accepting this great responsibility, the king of the underground says. It has, however, not yet been decided who this temporary king will be. And you are, of course, welcome to make your own suggestions as to who you think should be the most suitable to take on this very important role. How about Albert? I think Peter would make a fine king. In that case, my vote goes to Brainan. If you ask me, I think the king of the underground would be the best pick. I'm going to go that other options are just stupid in this option. We should like pamper to him a little bit. If you ask me, I think the king of the underground would be the best pick. It would appear that I have an ally in your group, the king says. I thank you for your support. Now how about the others? Who would the rest of you like to see as the new king of Olander? I would like to nominate Dr. Reitzik as a candidate, Darren says, as Layla's father turns his head towards him with a shocked look on his face. An excellent choice, the king of the underground tells Darren, after taking a quick glance towards Layla's father to observe his reaction. Dr. Reitzik has become a much respected member of our society in a short time that he's graced us with his presence, so I have no doubts that he would gather many votes were he to agree to participate in an election. What do you say, Doctor? Should I put your name in the candidates list? I'm afraid that I won't be entering the election, Lila's father says. I'm sorry, Darren, but becoming king would be too great a responsibility for a simple inventor like me. I joined this rebellion because I wanted to help change the city for the better. But the idea of leading an entire kingdom is just too much for me to bear. I hope I didn't end up disappointing any of you by saying this. No, of course not, Darren says. It's your choice whether you want to be king or not. I was only making a suggestion, that's all. So, are there any other people that you would like to recommend? The king asked Darren. What about Desmond? Darren says. He seems like it would be great. Hey, keep me out of your politics, Desmond shouts as he's still guarding the door of the quarantine area. I requested this position as a quarantine area guard specifically so that I won't need to take high-risk jobs. It's a quarantine area. That's a pretty risky job, I would say. I won't need to take high-risk jobs ever again. If you think you can force me to be king, you must be out of your mind. No, we weren't trying to force you or anything. Darren is digging a hole for himself at this point, honestly. No, we weren't trying to force you or anything, Darren says. We were just discussing our options. Looks like Desmond doesn't want to be king either, the king of the underground says. Do you have anyone else in mind? Well, I was thinking maybe Darren begins to look around the waiting room in a desperate attempt to find someone who he deemed to be a good fit for the king. But after a while, he finally drops his head, showing that he has given up. It's not easy to find the exact right person for a job like this, is it? The King of the Underground tells Darren. Sadly, it is rare occurrence to come across a person that has not only the strength of character and leadership skills required for being a king, but also the willingness to accept such a huge responsibility. Rest assured, we will be holding fair elections, and we will also be asking around the cavern to see if our underground denizens would have some better ideas of who we could include on the candidate list.